our next grant cycle, what I'm doing for our next grant cycle is requiring that arts organizations help us put this word out by having them collect these surveys. And I like the QR code. You're right, not that many people use it because everybody's being hit with surveys. I like the URL link, and we'll do the hard copy as needed. But I'm pretty confident that at least this summer we'll see what the festivals do to help us. I've contacted each festival. I've written up a sheet. I've done what the AFTA suggested. I've created copies of the QR code and information. I've also produced poster boards that we'll put up at festivals around the event. I wrote out an announcement that they'll make at these festivals. Whether anybody does it, it's probably better than how it was in 2016 when a couple of us were literally handing these out at festivals with clipboards and waiting for people to fill them out, if they even filled them out accurately, you know. I even tried to get the festivals to provide a free beer or a free drink for any of the people that fill out the surveys. Of course, they poo-pooed that idea because that's their moneymaker, but we're trying to figure out ways to excite folks to fill this out. It only takes 3 minutes, as we know, or 5 or 10, depending on how fast you are. But I think we can hit a good many this summer, and then require those in our grant cycles to do their work on their end, and should be pretty good. I don't know, I don't know if your thoughts are on the BIPOC component of this, which I thought was kind of funny how they're separating the two, but I understand. But that's where we are right now in Dane County. We're doing our best. I know Augusta this past week, we had a festival of which she was a part, and I don't know how many surveys she was able to get completed with the QR code. Do you have any sense of that, Augusta?
It's hard to tell until we get another count. But I did have to ask people. It didn't seem like people were doing it on their own. And I think it needs to be more randomized, like with the QR code. And I was working a welcome table, so I was doing a lot of things at once, and having somebody more designated for just collecting surveys, I think would be really helpful. Anyone I asked who's also an arts administrator who happened to be working the event was super excited to do it. They're like, of course, I'm on it right away. But yeah, I think the curtain call speech is going to be really important. I think that would have helped with the festival I was at. So going forward, I know the script that Mark created is going to be really essential. There were a couple people I asked who didn't have QR code readers because of the type of phone they had. So I would just say having a mixture of paper and QR codes would be great.
We were fortunate in 2016 that we were able to, since there's a number of organizations participating, that I only looked to get 10 surveys a night. We have 106 performances or something like that a year. So, I mean, it was me just like, okay, 10, 15, see if I can get that many a night. We won't do a curtain speech before ours. We try to avoid all curtain speeches except for our no-nos and an opening night of our season, just so we get the show going right away. And then the BIPOC one, as you had mentioned, that Door County is not using the BIPOC QR code because none of us have, we don't meet the criteria to use the BIPOC QR code. None of us have programming that is for an audience size that is required from the BIPOC QR code, nor programming style that is required from the BIPOC QR code. So they made it clear, do not use this if you do not meet all of these, if you don't meet all of these requirements. So we're all just using the regular QR code.
I was going to ask which of the insider tips really resonated with you all if you had a chance to look at them. And Mark, it sounds like you listed out a few strategies that you were already using from that. And then I was going to ask about the BIPOC piece. So thanks for bringing that up, Mark, and your comments on that, Brian. For those who are doing this kind of for the first time, and Lindsay, where are you from? I should know and I don't, I'm sorry.
I'm from Imagine Milwaukee.
Milwaukee, oh, awesome. Yes, hello. And so, right. And so how are things going in Milwaukee, you two?
Good. So we're getting started a little bit slowly. We have a couple coming up. So this week we're going to survey at Milwaukee Opera Theater. That's a ticketed event. Next week we're going to survey at Poetry in the Park, which is a free outdoor event. So to give ourselves a little bit of flexibility and grace to get started, we're doing a couple smaller events. And then we're hoping to get out to some of the festivals over the summer. And then a lot of the other organizations that we've been talking to are looking farther ahead to the fall, of course, when their programming will pick back up.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
are you actually doing it at your partner arts organizations, or are you having your partner arts organizations do it because they're the ones that are going to be at least as much as you benefiting from the results of this thing? So
So we're
is
kind of approaching it as a bit of a combination. So we're grateful for the opportunity to be out at these events and having a presence. And so we want to be there. It's a great excuse. And so, for example, at Milwaukee Opera Theater this week, I'll be there, and then they'll also provide a volunteer. And in both cases for these two events that we have scheduled in the next couple of weeks, in talking with the organizations, their preference was for paper surveys. And so we're planning to do handing out paper surveys as folks are walking into the event. In this case, this week, they're not doing a curtain speech for artistic choices. So we won't necessarily have an opportunity to do that, but we will have some talking points so that the volunteer and then any other staff that are staffing the ticket table can share with patrons why we're doing this and what we're up to.
Thank you.
We're
Yeah.
also a little bit curious to collect some additional data from folks who are going to events that we're using for our own research. And so given that we can only talk to one person in each group, we're going to have some folks sort of like intercepting other folks too. So we're sort of taking this as an opportunity to understand our community a little better as well.
Oh, I would love to hear the results of that when you're ready to share whatever you glean in that sort of the side project. That's great.
Where do you find your folks to help? That's fun. I wish I had a group of volunteers that would do that. I'm actually trying to think of my budget where I steal some money from one section to another to pay folks to help me do this, because it is such an animal in Dane County with such a large population. One of the things I am doing, I'm having a workshop, as you would with a grant writing workshop, on a week from Friday and the 17th for all arts organizations that we fund from our previous cycle to attend, to go through this process so we can give them a heads up of how we want them to collect it. Not that I would we would withhold any money from them if they don't do it, but we're really strong in encouraging them for the reasons that you mentioned, Karen. It's going to benefit them more than us to get this data collected.
Hey, Mark, can you get some arts management students from the university to help out maybe?
It's possible, but it is summer here. So everybody that I know in the management program is either working a full-time job elsewhere now, or I don't really have those connections. UW's an animal to even try and approach in terms of getting assistance, but I haven't gone that route yet. No, Alan.
Hey, I just wanted, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, we've engaged a small group of teens with the hope that people will feel more comfortable talking to young people, and we're paying them, but it is like herding cats, and we haven't managed to do that yet. So far, it has been staff that's gone to Artreach staff that's gone to collect the surveys. And like David, I'm thinking of it as showing my role as a local arts agency. So in a way, it benefits my organization to have like my t-shirts out there and doing that and taking the burden off of my peers who are busy with their evening of hosting, whatever it is. So I feel like that's my attitude at this point. For the
It's early days.
Right. And for the active surveying, because I do hope that the passive QR code or URL is a viable option. And I want those to both be part of our strategy.
So speaking of strategy, I did want to share a little context. And Marie, please, I'm talking a lot, so if you want to jump in, feel free, or if you just want to stay in the background, that's fine. But I'm going to voice some gratitude. Marie is really taking this on for us this year, and it's critical, her help. But what we are doing, you all, so there are 6 communities that are doing a deep dive and doing your own and intensively gathering the material that will also then feed into the state study. We are then looking at the gaps around the state that are not being sort of surveyed or counted through your work and doing some direct work in some of those communities so that we can flesh out a bit more for the context. And then that will help you kind of place yourself within the state. And of course, we're going to be placed within the nation through all of AFTA's work. But I wanted to make sure to mention that. So you understood part of what we're doing. Also really wanting to support you in your work. So you've got Ben, he's awesome. He's highly responsive. This is not his first, second, or third rodeo. He's been doing this for a while. But if there is some support that we can provide, I'm raising Marie's hand as well as mine, and we'd be really happy to do that. So keep us posted if you run into anything, really anything awesome or anything not. And if you want to share some things that are really working in your communities, or if you just want to keep to yourselves, that's fine. But we do have this sort of 6 community, 7 with the Arts Board cohort. And so I offer that as a resource to you all and your volunteers as you move through the next few months. What else? We're going to start the organizational surveys in the fall. Yeah. And so, we'll pull our partners in a little more closely through that process. But my guess is that there's enough on everyone's plate right now that you're just focusing on the audience stuff. Ellen, you just unmuted. Did you want to say
Yeah,
something?
I just wanted to fill you in on where we're at. First off, BACA is very new.
BACA is
Bay Area Arts and Cultural Alliance,
located in?
Brown County, Green Bay.
Thank you.
So we're covering just Brown County for this survey, but we are representing a broader area in general. We got a grant to bring in Christine Harris to do a cultural assessment of the area. And originally the idea was we were going to start AEP and then building on that, bring Christine in. Well, with all the delays, we're more starting with Christine. And so because they would kind of fall right on top of each other, we talked to the folks at AFTA and said, we're not going to put on much of a push for the summer for these surveys because we don't want to get the organizations we're working with confused about what's what here. So we're probably going to start sometime in August or September to really go hard on the surveys. But one thing that did help is we've identified organizations really well for our database, in part because we had students in my arts management class culling through GuideStar and
Awesome.
any other sources we could find, doing some follow-up contacts. We've got a really nice database of organizations to go into that part of it.
So I think Brown County, I think Milwaukee County City, I think Dane County, and I think of a significant number of communities of color that have cultural activities and events. And for the first time, AFTA is really focusing on translating these surveys into different languages, which is awesome. And I'm very curious to know when you all are able to take advantage of some of the events that are happening within communities that speak different languages. If you use those surveys, how you use those surveys, if you need any ins into those communities, and I bet you don't. I bet you're already way more connected than we are, but we do have connections with some organizations in each of those counties. So if we can be of help at all with that, keep us posted there too. But have you had a chance to think about where you might use some of those surveys, or are you still kind of getting your feet wet in the process right now, Milwaukee, Brown, and Dane?
Well, I contacted a friend of mine who's Filipino Filipino, and she and her family are going to go with both English and translated surveys to the Filipino Cultural Festival that's coming up
Heather,
soon.
I love that I ignore you and you just jump right in. That is so awesome. Thank you for calling me
I'm
out
a
on
type
that.
A.
That was
Bring it.
perfect.
We have several organizations in Madison, Dane County that fill that criteria as a BIPOC. So I've already reached out to a few. I know many of them personally, so I will ask them to help with this. As far as other languages, that's a good question. We'll have it available, but I think most of the folks that I work with in those other communities are bilingual, or if not trilingual, but they'll have it available too. I don't know how, it's funny, it's not funny, but it's interesting because so many folks in these communities of color are hesitant to fill out any of this stuff or get their vaccination or COVID, because free to them and to us is a whole different meaning on some levels, and then nothing's free. There's something attached to this, that whole systemic mindset of like not giving out this information to anybody regardless. So my hope is that these relationships we've developed in some of these communities will help us break through that, but I'm not putting up a whole lot of hope, because it's still a difficult task to try and reach. And I was telling Augusta the other day, but in Dane County and Dane Arts, all our work is inclusive. It's just nature of who, at least I am as a person of color, but it's still difficult to do and not easy and a challenge in itself. So we'll see how it pours out. It'll be interesting to see the BIPOC information that AFTA produces in 23.
Yeah.
Being begun to reach out to organizations and to have initial conversations with them about this. It's been for at least the person I was supposed to speak to on Friday or Thursday. It's been hard to sort of close the loop with some folks, and I think I would just reflect what Mark's comment just now is that, like, with some of the folks we've already had conversations with, I think there's some sensitivity about data collection and questions and the ways in which how it's going to be used and all of that, and I think and then also just limited staffing capacity, right? I mean, if we're gonna do the same sort of strategy with some of these other organizations, we're going to need, I think, some more appropriate messengers or more appropriate survey folks as they're intercepting people coming into these events.
Yeah. Yeah.
I actually have a question, or maybe a observation, because in the St. Croix Valley, we're working with very small organizations and often informal arts groups. So this is something I've talked to Ben about, because this survey is about the nonprofit art sector, but a lot of the events and activities that happen are nonprofit-like, but they're informal arts groups or artist run. So I think that figuring out where the surveying makes sense outside of the organization structure is an interesting one. And I think that that's where leaning on the artists, so I think in the St. Croix Valley, the BIPOC stuff is going to happen at the artist-led activity level, not at the theater or the gallery. So, and there is room for those informal arts activities to be included. And it's a little bit less clear to me because they gave the whole list of all the organization types that are not my peers in the nonprofit sector. So a little harder to reach out to, but that's where I figure I'm going to see the BIPOC surveying opportunities.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that's as I say, I'm glad they're doing it this year. I'm curious to know how effective it is. You all bring up some really good points. So thank you for that. What haven't we talked about that you were hoping we might touch on before we are done? It sounds like everybody's off to a good start. You're giving yourself some grace, which is critical, and you're taking some breaths, and you're acknowledging that your communities are still at a point of being very hungry for events. And so, and maybe a little tired of surveys. I mean, I don't know, certainly not the face-to-face stuff, but I hope that there is an effective way of framing this so that as you acknowledge and meet that hunger in the people in your community and the people who come to your community, if not they're from community, and just say, so glad you're here. So glad we're able to connect you with the arts. So glad we're able to provide you with this. You're able to engage with this. And the funding mechanism to make sure that this continues is a complex one. So just please trust us when we say your 3 minutes will make a big difference to your ability to engage on this and other awesome stuff going forward. You know, I hope it resonates. I don't know. I'll take the opportunity, though, to thank you all very much for this work, not only on the study, but just the grander scheme of things. Because without you, yeah, your communities and this state would be so much poorer. And as it is, it's exciting to see the energy start really ramping up for this summer, which we hope will be a little more easy than the last couple have been. All right. Well, if that's it, if there's
I'll be
nothing else.
sending you a
Yeah, Mark.
survey about this meeting after this meeting.
I can't wait. All right. If that's it, then take care and I look forward to hearing how things go.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you
right.
all.
Take care.
Forward
You
to your
all.
QR code, Mark.
Oh, Brian, I was going to, darn it, because I was having such bad connection. I was going to introduce Brian as the new chair, and I totally forgot how to do that. Oh, well, whatever.
All right.
Thanks, you guys.
I'm glad your technology came back.
Yeah, sorry about that. I did not mean to just throw that at you. I knew you could catch it, but the technology was fine until just then. So
Mm.
whatever. Marie, did I forget anything?
Yeah, I just needed to remind you of the recording, so.
Yes, thank you for that, which is still going. So I'll stop it now. All right. Take care, you guys.
Bye.